to go back to it. It's then Vice President Biden's own words. He said, "We are trying to build a multipolar world." Those aren't my words. That's not my interpretation. That's an exact quote. So is it your understanding that now he's joined the America First movement, or is this continues to be his policies, and do you endorse that?
If that's directed at me, I'm with Secretary Yellen. I tend not to answer things I don't fully understand in multipolar world. I'll leave it at that. What I do know and what I've heard this president say is that we have to regain footing in several ways. We have to, of course, maintain a strong defense. We have to do things in the diplomatic front, like the programs I talked about. But we also, what are we spending in research? China is growing their footprint in manufacturing and things we are far behind in. That is part of what the Inflation Reduction Act will change. We will build more of that clean energy here and bring jobs back here. So this president has been crystal clear that he believes America's role is to be first in those places, including
America
in
was already
research.
leading, in producing clean energy. We were the best at producing oil and gas. We're the best in what you would call green energy. We're leading the world in that, and so the Inflation Reduction Act was not necessary in reaching that goal. We were already leading the world in that. You said, let's not hold the debt ceiling hostage to really draconian cuts that all help the wealthiest in this country. And then Secretary Yellen, you said, I don't think that we should, you said, in speaking of prioritization in relation to the debt ceiling, you said that prioritization is simply not paying all the government's bills when they come due. That's something we've never done. It's really just default by another name. And I was kind of puzzled by that because, our job in Congress is to prioritize what the spending should be. The president submits a budget, and then we weigh it, and then we send it. And I'm a little puzzled to see that, some of the things we're spending money on watching hamsters fight on steroids, turning mice into binge drinking alcohol, drag shows in Ecuador. The Biden administration is funneling tax dollars to Colombian LGBT groups that back prostitution. We have 77,000 empty federal buildings. One of the big things going on at the border is no bid contracting that's under investigation now. So there's a lot of areas, it seems, that we could cut that wouldn't be considered a default. Would you agree?
No, I wouldn't agree because it's certainly up to Congress and this committee to decide about the budget for 2024 and years after that, what future commitments Congress chooses to make about spending levels. But the debt ceiling is about paying bills for programs Congress already approved.
No, but
and
there
has
are
undertaken.
some, for example, the COVID funding that was mentioned. It's $90 billion, I think, of funding.
Well,
that's
the
not
bills
being
that
used.
come to Treasury to pay cover expenses that Congress has authorized. And they've gotten to the point of services have been provided, whether it's by the federal government's own workforce or contractors who have bills to pay for workers that they've hired to provide government services. And it's about paying those bills when they come due. And if you don't pay bills that come due for services that you have ordered and
I think I get what you're
authorized,
saying, and
that's
I'm kind of
default.
running out of time here. If I could move on. As someone new on this committee, one of the things that I've been trying to go through numbers, me and my team and everything. That's been difficult. Is the things that I mentioned. One of the reasons I mentioned them is because most of them are not line items in a budget. They have to do with the grants and contracting, which is kind of opaque to us. Even it's very difficult to find. We send a top line in a budget. We'll appropriate dollars toward a budget, but then the grants it's really opaque to what's going on, and that's where a lot of the policy initiatives are, and really a lot of the nefarious action is going on. And I would wonder if you would work with us and help come up with some transparency mechanism to where not just us, but the American people can see not only what we are attempting to spend money on, but what the actual grants are going to, how they're being approved, where they're going. Because, you know, one of the things, I mentioned training mice to binge drink, you know, that's an NIH thing, you know, while they were doing gain of function and everything else that we're looking into. If we could have had transparency on where these grants are going, it would have helped. Is that something that we could work with
So
you on?
let me
Kind of the technicality of how to.
This subcommittee in particular certainly knows how to mandate transparency. OMB currently puts every single action that authorizes agencies to go out and execute on their appropriations. So you've heard a lot about apportionments, I'm sure. In the last administration, this committee in particular directed OMB to put every single last apportionment, which is transparency we've never seen the level of. So this committee is certainly led in transparency. I'll also point to USA spending, which has obligation data. There is a lag, so people complain you don't see it real time. But the goal was, in past Congresses and administrations, it made sense to put those obligations online, and usaspending.gov does that. And I'll point out, just at NIH, you know, peer review panels do pick those research grants, so I'm not sure about the ones you've mentioned, but I'm happy to go back and look at those. But, you know, we just have to be very careful that we don't do anything to insert politics or into a peer review process as we select research grants.
I can appreciate that, but peer review is what gave us a lot of faulty information during COVID too, so we probably need to look at that as well.
Mr. Siscomani, bring us home.
What a tall order.
Put the freshman to that task. That's great. Well, let me just actually close